In a world full of dangers and mysteries, early humans faced questions they couldn't answer. Why did storms strike? Why did people die without warning? One curious caveman, Grok, started asking, who controls all of this? His search for answers led to the birth of the first religion. How did fear turn into faith? And could it all start with a single question? The truth might be even more surprising than you think. This is the story of how our cave-dwelling ancestors became the first people on Earth to believe in something bigger than themselves. This is how religion was born. Picture life 50,000 years ago. There were no cities, no houses, no schools, and definitely no smartphones. Early humans lived in small groups of maybe 20 to 30 people. They spent their days hunting animals, gathering berries and nuts, and trying not to become someone else's dinner. Life was hard and scary. Really, really scary. Every single day brought new dangers. Saber-toothed cats could jump out from behind rocks. Huge bears lived in the best caves, poisonous snakes hid in the grass, and that was just the animals. The weather was even more frightening. Thunderstorms came out of nowhere, with lightning bolts that could split trees in half and start enormous fires. Sometimes the ground would shake so hard that rocks would fall from cliffs, rivers would suddenly flood and wash away everything in their path. But the scariest thing of all? Death. These early humans watched their friends and family get sick and die, and they had no idea why. One day someone would be laughing and sharing food around the fire. The next day, they would be cold and still, never to move again. Our ancestors were smart, but they didn't know about germs or viruses or heart attacks. They didn't understand earthquakes or weather patterns. To them, all these terrible and wonderful things had to be caused by someone or something with incredible power. Let's imagine we're following a caveman named Grok. Don't laugh at the name, it's what we think early humans might have been called. One evening, Grok was sitting outside his cave when the most amazing thing happened. The whole sky turned red and orange and purple like someone had spilled paint across the heavens. We know this as a sunset, but Grok had never seen anything so beautiful and mysterious. Who painted the sky? Grok wondered. What powerful being can change the colors of the whole world? The next morning, Grok watched the sun come up, bright and warm, chasing away the cold darkness. It was like magic. Something was making the light come back every day, just when his tribe needed it most. Then came the really big moment. During a terrible thunderstorm, lightning struck a dead tree near Grok's cave, but instead of just destroying the tree, something amazing happened. Fire appeared! Dancing, flickering, warm fire that could cook food and scare away dangerous animals. Grok and his tribe gathered around this gift from the sky. They had never seen anything like it. The fire seemed alive, dancing and crackling, giving them warmth and light in the scary darkness. The sky spirits gave us this fire, Grok told his tribe. They want to help us. This was probably one of the first religious thoughts in human history. Questions that changed everything. As early humans became smarter, they started asking bigger and bigger questions. Why does the sun go away every night? Is it angry with us? Who makes the rain fall when our water runs out? Why do some people die while others live? Where do we go when we die? Who decides if we find food or go hungry? These questions were too big and scary to leave unanswered. Early humans needed explanations, even if they had to make them up. So they started creating stories. Maybe there was an invisible, super powerful being who controlled the Sunday. Maybe there were spirits living in the trees and rocks and rivers. Maybe their dead friends and family were still alive somewhere else, in a place they couldn't see. These stories made them feel less scared and alone in the big, dangerous world. Archaeologists, the people who dig up old things to learn about the past, have found some incredible discoveries that show us how early religion began. In caves around the world, they've found paintings that are over 40,000 years old. These aren't just pictures of animals or handprints. Some show strange creatures that are half human and half animal. Others show people dancing or performing ceremonies around fires. One of the most amazing discoveries was in a cave in France. Early humans had drawn pictures of what looked like a sorcerer or shaman, a special person who could talk to the spirits. This person was wearing animal skins and antlers, dancing in a magical pose. This tells us that even 40,000 years ago, humans believed in supernatural powers and had special people whose job it was to communicate with these powers. Here's something that will amaze you. Early humans were probably the first animals on Earth to bury their dead instead of just leaving them behind. Why is this so important? Because it shows they believed death wasn't the end of the story. Archaeologists have found graves that are over 100,000 years old. But these aren't just holes in the ground. Early humans buried their dead with tools, food, flowers, and jewelry. They even positioned the bodies in special ways, sometimes curled up like they were sleeping. Why would they do this unless they believed the person would need these things in another life? Imagine young Grok watching his grandfather being buried with his favorite spear and some berries for the journey ahead. Grok's tribe believed that grandfather was going somewhere else, somewhere they couldn't see, but where he would still need his spear to hunt and food to eat. This was the beginning of belief in an afterlife, the idea that part of us continues to exist after our body dies. Early humans saw spirits in everything around them. The river that gave them fresh water? It had a river spirit who decided whether the water would flow or dry up. The forest where they hunted? Forest spirits lived in every tree and decided whether the animals would be easy to catch or hide away. The mountains that surrounded their valley? Mountain spirits who could cause landslides if they got angry. Even their tools and weapons had spirits. A spear that helped a hunter catch many animals was blessed by the spirits. A tool that broke at the wrong time was cursed. This way of thinking is called animism, the belief that everything in nature has a spirit or soul. It was probably the very first type of religion that humans ever had. As these beliefs grew stronger, something interesting happened. Some people in the tribe seemed to be better at communicating with the spirits than others. Maybe it was the old woman who always knew when storms were coming. Maybe it was the hunter who could find animals when nobody else could. Maybe it was the person who had strange dreams that sometimes came true. These special people became the first priests, shamans, and spiritual leaders. Their job was to talk to the spirits on behalf of everyone else. They would perform ceremonies, make offerings to the spirits, and try to keep the invisible powers happy. If someone got sick, the shaman would try to heal them by asking the spirits for help. If the tribe needed rain, the shaman would perform a rain dance. These were the first religious leaders in human history. Those painted caves we talked about earlier? They weren't just art galleries. They were probably the first churches or temples ever built. Deep inside dark caves, early humans would gather around fires and paint pictures on the walls. But these weren't just any pictures. They painted the animals they hunted, the spirits they believed in, and the ceremonies they performed. Scientists think these caves were sacred places where the tribe would come together to perform religious rituals. The paintings were like prayers written on stone that would last forever. Imagine young members of the tribe being brought into these painted caves for the first time, seeing the dancing figures and animal spirits flickering in the firelight. It must have been magical and terrifying and wonderful all at the same time. So why did early humans create religion in the first place? Scientists have several ideas. First, religion helped explain things they couldn't understand. When you don't know what causes lightning, it makes sense to think a powerful spirit is throwing bolts from the sky. Second, religion made people feel less alone and scared. Believing in protective spirits or gods gave them hope and comfort in a dangerous world. Third, religion brought the tribe together. Shared beliefs and ceremonies helped people work as a team and take care of each other. Fourth, religion helped people deal with death. The idea that their loved ones continued to exist somewhere else made losing them less painful. Finally, religion gave people a sense of purpose. Instead of just trying to survive each day, they felt like they were part of something bigger and more important. From those first cavemen wondering who painted the sky, religion has grown and changed and spread all around the world. Today, billions of people follow hundreds of different religions, from Christianity to Islam to Buddhism to Hinduism and many others. But they all started with the same basic human need, the need to understand our place in the universe and to believe in something greater than ourselves. Every time you see someone pray, or visit a church, temple, or mosque, or celebrate a religious holiday, you're seeing the continuation of something that began 50,000 years ago with a caveman named Grok looking up at a painted sky and asking, "Who did this?" The next time you look up at a beautiful sunset, or feel scared during a thunderstorm, or wonder what happens when we die, remember that you're asking the same questions that led to the very first religious thoughts in human history. Those brave, curious cavemen who first looked beyond themselves and imagined invisible powers controlling the world around them gave us one of humanity's most important gifts, the ability to believe in something bigger than ourselves. And that, my friends, is how religion was born in the caves and around the fires of our ancient ancestors, changing the course of human history forever. 50,000 years ago, giving birth meant facing death. No hospitals, no doctors, just raw survival. Yet against predators, brutal climates, and endless movement, prehistoric women not only gave birth, they thrived. New archaeological evidence shows these communities built incredibly sophisticated systems to protect mothers, turning every birth into a collective mission of survival. For most of human history, spanning the Paleolithic period from 300,000 to 10,000 years ago, pregnancy was humanity's ultimate survival challenge. Our ancestors faced predators, harsh weather, constant movement, and limited resources, yet somehow, generation after generation survived to pass on their genes. Recent archaeological discoveries are revealing that our prehistoric ancestors developed remarkably sophisticated systems to protect pregnant women, systems that were far more advanced than we ever imagined. The story begins in the dirt. Modern archaeological techniques are finally allowing us to decode what happened to pregnant women in prehistoric times. Recent research from the VAMOS project has provided evidence that pregnancies and childbirth events can leave traces in the female skeleton, particularly in pelvic features. Scientists can now examine ancient bones and determine not just whether a woman gave birth, but how many times. Analysis of Neolithic skeletons reveals that the average Neolithic woman bore between 8 and 10 children. But here's what's remarkable: many of these women survived multiple pregnancies. Skeletal remains show evidence of healed injuries, suggesting that when women were injured during or after childbirth, their communities cared for them through recovery periods that could last months. The most compelling evidence comes from burial sites. Joint research between universities has found clear examples of ancient burials of pregnant women, with the burial dating from the Argyric period between 1,500 and 1,000 years BC in the Bronze Age. These weren't hastily buried casualties. They were carefully interred with ritual significance, showing that pregnant women held special status in their communities. Archaeological excavations have also uncovered specialized tools that appear designed for maternal care. Stone cutting implements show wear patterns consistent with cutting umbilical cords. Evidence of soft bedding materials made from animal hides and plant fibers suggests dedicated birthing areas. Most intriguingly, researchers discovered carefully crafted bone spoons used by Neolithic mothers to serve their babies gruel, probably a mix of milk and cereals, based on bite marks found on these spoons. The key to prehistoric maternal survival wasn't medical technology, it was social technology. Archaeological evidence from early human settlements reveals sophisticated community structures designed around protecting vulnerable members. During late pregnancy, women were assigned to safer tasks within the settlement while others took over the dangerous work of hunting and gathering. Knowledge transfer systems were crucial. Elder women served as prehistoric midwives, passing down birthing knowledge through oral traditions. Studies of coprolite samples reveal evidence of medicinal plant use, indicating that prehistoric communities had developed pharmacological knowledge specifically for pregnancy and childbirth. These weren't random folk remedies, they were carefully tested and refined treatments passed down through generations. The village concept provided multiple layers of protection. When one woman went into labor, the entire community shifted into protection mode. Some members would create secure birthing areas, others would gather medicinal plants, and guards would watch for predators. This cooperative child-rearing system meant that no woman faced pregnancy alone. Human pregnancy evolved unique characteristics that provided natural protection. Unlike other primates, humans developed extended family bonds and pair bonding systems that ensured pregnant women had dedicated protectors. The need for temperature control to ensure the viability of a newborn infant was a critical factor during the Paleolithic in Europe, especially given the climatic conditions which deteriorated between 40,000 and 10,000 years ago. Hormonal changes during pregnancy may have actually influenced group cooperation. Research suggests that pregnant women's chemical signals triggered protective behaviors in other community members, creating an unconscious but powerful support network. These behavioral adaptations included nesting behaviors, where entire communities would modify their movement patterns to accommodate pregnant members. The famous Shanidar Cave in Iraqi Kurdistan provides some of the most compelling evidence for prehistoric maternal care. The Shanidar skeletons show evidence of injuries tended and healed, indications that the sick and wounded had been cared for, with one individual having sustained localized injuries to the forehead, face, and right arm, leg, and foot, apparently surviving for years without the use of one arm and blind in one eye. The famous Shanidar 4 flower burial involved pollen clumps, suggesting that entire flowering plants had been part of the grave deposit, with flowers that may have been chosen for their specific medicinal properties including yarrow, cornflower, bachelor's button, St. Barnaby's thistle, ragwort, grape hyacinth, horsetail, and hollyhock, all traditionally used as diuretics, stimulants, and astringents and anti-inflammatories. Recent excavations have revealed that a Neanderthal individual had been placed into a hollowed-out scrape in the cave surface that had a layer of plants in its base. with evidence that the ground was altered to take the body, supporting the idea of deliberate burial. This suggests that Neanderthals had developed ritual practices specifically around pregnancy and death during childbirth. Different prehistoric cultures developed unique strategies based on their environments. Arctic communities created specialized warming techniques for newborns using animal furs and heated stones. Tropical societies developed plant-based medicines and cooling strategies. Iron Age representations show women giving birth in squatting positions, with images found stamped on Etruscan pottery showing women squatting as they give birth, with babies shown already partly delivered between their legs. Regional variations were dramatic. Some cultures developed mobile birthing shelters that could be quickly assembled during labor. Others created permanent birthing caves with specialized ventilation systems. Archaeological evidence shows that communities near water sources had lower maternal mortality rates, likely due to better hygiene and easier access to medicinal plants. Contemporary hunter-gatherer societies provide crucial insights into prehistoric practices. Studies of modern foraging communities like the Agta found total fertility rates of 7.7, one of the highest reported in foragers, with settled mothers having significantly higher fertility than women who moved camp. However, research on hunter-gatherer societies shows that on average, 49% of all children died, with infant mortality rates around 20 to 40%. But here's the crucial distinction. While infant mortality rates could be in the region of 20 to 40% for hunter-gatherer communities, those who survived infancy often lived well into their early 50s. The high infant mortality numbers don't necessarily reflect maternal mortality during birth itself. The stereotype of prehistoric life as nasty, brutish, and short has been dramatically challenged by recent research. Researchers at the Australian National University have developed the first method for determining maternal mortality rates in prehistoric populations, asking, if a population has unexpectedly low maternal mortality rates, then we have to ask why. Did people have better skills at delivering babies, or better care for pregnant women? Evidence suggests that prehistoric medical knowledge was remarkably sophisticated. Communities had detailed understanding of medicinal plants, birthing positions, and postnatal care. The social support systems were often more comprehensive than those available in many modern societies. What emerges from the archaeological record is a picture of human ingenuity and compassion that spans millennia. Prehistoric communities developed three primary protective mechanisms: community cooperation, specialized knowledge systems, and evolutionary adaptations. Community cooperation meant that pregnant women were never alone. Specialized knowledge ensured that each birth benefited from thousands of years of accumulated wisdom. Evolutionary adaptations provided biological safeguards that improved survival odds for both mothers and babies. We need to provide evidence-based answers rather than relying on naive narratives about prehistoric life. The evidence shows that our ancestors weren't primitive survivors struggling against nature. They were sophisticated societies that prioritized the protection of their most vulnerable members. The next time you think about prehistoric life, remember this. Every person alive today is descended from women who successfully gave birth under the most challenging conditions imaginable. Their survival wasn't luck. It was the result of comprehensive, community-based systems that recognize pregnancy as humanity's most critical survival challenge. These ancient mothers didn't just survive, they thrived, creating the foundation for every civilization that followed. The question isn't how prehistoric women survived pregnancy, it's how they developed such sophisticated protection systems without any of our modern technology. Their answer was simple: when the survival of the species depends on successful birth, the entire community becomes the hospital, the midwife, and the support system. Perhaps there's something we can learn from that ancient wisdom today. The question of how transgender people were treated in prehistoric societies leads us into a world without writing, nations, or formal laws. A time when understanding human identity depended on daily survival, spirituality, and community roles. Though the term transgender is relatively modern, human gender diversity is not. Studying the lives of transgender or gender non-conforming individuals from prehistoric times is difficult. There are no written records from the Paleolithic, Neolithic, or even early Bronze Age to tell us what people thought or felt. Instead, researchers rely on archaeological discoveries, burial customs, anthropological comparisons, and DNA analysis to uncover clues about how early humans might have understood gender roles and identities beyond the male-female binary. In modern terms, sex refers to a person's biological attributes, while gender refers to roles, behaviors, and identities that a society assigns. These categories are fluid and can vary across cultures and time. Applying today's definitions to prehistoric people must be done with care, but findings do suggest that gender diversity has long been part of the human experience.